PoE 3.25 Settlers of Kalguur is here. How then are we going to play the Ground Slam Slayer build in this league? Well, I've got you covered for everything you're going to need to know, including gems, jewels, flasks, gear, Ascendants, Bandits, all of that fun stuff coming right up. So I'm going to get out of the way and first actually show you how the build looks. So you may or may not be aware that Ground Slam is actually one of the oldest skills we have in PoE. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that I was playing back then, but it was, in fact, I wish I was. I was probably playing Diablo 3 back then. But anyway, it was added in July 2010 with version 0.6. Isn't that insane? And it has had nothing but buffs since then. And is honestly one of mine, and maybe even now your most favourite ways to enjoy playing melee. So how do we scale our damage then? Well, we're going to stack dexterity with our hollow palm technique, and we're going to put a spin on it. So since Hollow Palm doesn't actually use a weapon or gloves, this creates a really unique power fantasy of slamming the ground with our bare hands, unleashing a shockwave of earth that destroys huge packs of enemies. Now, the build behind me that I am showing you is done with an axe, but if you are wondering, you can actually see that closely. But it's going to be pretty much the same as you see here behind, well, not behind me to turn the webcam off, but it's going to be the same as you see here, just without an actual weapon. We're changing it a little bit. So the Slayer Ascendancy is actually going to enhance this as well with our Brutal Fervor. And then we've got our other defensive bonuses on there as well, while attacking and leeching. So on the damage side, it's going to boost AoE and attack speed and accuracy. And also the 20% Carl feels great. So what are the pros and cons? Well, first of all, it's a great league start and has great scaling. Ground Slam is available immediately on entering your first town, and you can then use it just the whole way to endgame, which is obviously fabulous. We just want to follow the League Start POB that I will put in the description for you. I'm going to put a League Start and then like an endgame version, so you can see kind of both and how that's going to kind of, you know, how we're going to transition over from one to the other so that you can use it as a League Start and or an endgame build if you'd like as well. Now, the Hollow Palm isn't going to come until later, so you are going to be using it with a weapon, like you see on screen at the moment, as you start. It's really easy to play as well if you are a beginner. It's a free button gameplay, and we all know melee has been buffed in 3.25. All we're going to use is dash, slam, dash, maybe drop some totems now and then we need nothing else besides flasks. So I've hyped it all up then, but what are the cons? Well, it is a stat budget, and the build uses a lot of uniques. Plus, we can't equip gloves or a shield, so any extra stats that we would have gotten those, obviously we're not getting because we haven't got any on there, which does hinder us a little bit. Regarding stat budgets then, which is one of the cons, it's very hard to fit chaos resistance into the build. If you don't know and you haven't watched my guides before, which is very likely because I've only just started doing PoE guides, I always advocate getting your your elemental resistances capped ASAP, and especially over to 75%, and then getting as much chaos resistance as you can. And this will make it difficult due to the lack of gear that we're going to be getting. But apart from those, I do think very workable cons. How does it actually play? Well, as long as a Slayer is attacking, they are leeching. And while leeching becomes immune to bleeds, stuns, and reflects. So this is going to keep us toe-to-toe, punching enemies in the face, and also slamming our fists on the ground, of course, which is really fun if you enjoy class fantasy like I do. That is why we game after all. So because of that, it can be really rewarding being up close to your enemies, but also allowing distance to like dodge incoming damage while we're running around slamming things. And with enough area of effect damage, we can actually clear most of the screen at once, with the main difficulty being that it is a frontal cone, not a circle. So it's kind of doing that cone in front of wherever you ground smash, basically. But like I said, it's only a few buttons, so again, I wouldn't consider this a con. Just want to talk over the actual stats a bit more. So for every 10 dexterity we gain, we're going to gain a flat I think 15 to 20 flat physical damage. And this is basically the core of the build. Impale, physical damage, damage while dual wielding, attack speed, all of these are going to work really, really well with it. On the defensive side, we have got armor, evasion, fortify, and spell suppression. And impale immunity or corrupted blood immunity can be obtained on the tree. Slayers, Overleach, and Ailment Immunity round out our defenses as well. Overall, I think this is a top-notch build that you should be playing in free. So let's get a bit more into the detail. So now we're going to look through the, first off, let's actually have a look at the gems. Now this here is the league start build that I am showing you. So do be aware that we are going to be then looking at the kind of more end game version. And I do want to remind you that you cannot get Hollow Palm very early in the game. You will be getting this later. So we are going to be just going with Ground Slam to start with, but that is absolutely... So you can see here we're going with a Val, Ground Slam whenever we can, and then impaling enemies with the Impale support. This is obviously on the 6 link, if you've even got a 6 link by the time you're watching this. If not, let's work up to it, of course. We've got melee physical damage on there. We've got Brutality, Multi-Strike, and Fortify. Fortify means we're going to be doing more melee damage. We're going to be causing more ailment damage and also have an increased Fortify percentage duration. Again, Brutality means we're going to be doing more physical damage as well. And then Multi-Strike basically means that we're going to do what it says on the tin. We're going to multi-strike. We're going to actually attack or hit more than once. It's actually going to be an additional 2 times we're going to be attacking just with this gem alone. Now, obviously, we haven't got any gloves or weapons on here, so your sockets, again, are going to be quite limited on this build. So I'm putting Dash, Automation, Steel Skin, and Blood Rage in for utilities. Dash for some movement speed, of course. Steel Skin for some defensives. Automation so that skills linked to it will be automatically triggered, making the build even easier. And then Blood Rage is going to give us some early game leech as well. Pride is an aura, meaning nearby enemies are going to take more damage from us. And then Blood and Sand means that we are going to do more area damage as well. So these two work really nicely together. Honestly, it's actually one of my favourite that I have put together. I actually love this one for early game. I think I might just maybe just start it again. If we then move over to end game, you can see here it's not really changing on the actual gems we're putting in, but of course we are then getting our jewel with adding the Hollow Palm technique in there. I think really all we've added is Enlighten for some extra experience and then Determination as well. Have I changed anything else? No, I don't think I have. I have to remember then. Moving then on to what gear, jewels and flasks that we are going to be using. Again, POB links are in the description for a league start and end game. Here we are looking at more the kind of filled out end game build that I would like you to go with in this. Again, of course, no weapon and gloves. Oh dear, poor us. I'm going for a lot of dexterity. You can see here in my rings, adding dexterity, adding maximum life, adding resistances wherever we can, really. In fact, we're just trying to get stats wherever we can because we are literally missing 2 slots. Cursed enemies on vulnerability on hits with 20% increased effect. I've gone for the Brisk Wrap Sunlever unique on the chest, adding 2 levels to socketed AoE gems. Again, remember, we're going to be doing that AoE in a cone in front of us where we're slamming, not actually in a general sort of circle around us. Got Axtramentis Onyx Amulet, allocating tenacity, adding attributes again. Basically adding, therefore, more dexterity, which we're going for. Remember, dexterity really equaling a lot of damage for us in this build. Same thing on the other ring. We're going for some reduced mana cost of attacks, increased mana reservation, life, chaos resistance, and again, dexterity on the helm. And really, we're just seeing this throughout the entire build. Gurakan's Flight, again, on the boots with more dexterity, evasion rating, movement speed. Immune to burning ground, shocked ground, and chilled ground is always one of my favourites with life regeneration while moving. Slam, move. This would be fantastic here. And then the Cyclopelian coil on the belt, again with increased dexterity. You're already going to start noticing that I really do hammer in on the dexterity in this build. For flasks, Lion's Roar, Granite Flask. And then I just go for these, the Delinquent Silver Flask of Curlew. Delinquent Amethyst Flask of and then again, and then I would generally put Life Flask on after this, depending if you need it. For the jewels, we've got some really interesting ones on this build. You can see here we've got we've got some dexterity, intelligence, maximum life. We've got the one with nothing. Ta-da! That is the one that adds the Hollow Palm technique for you. On your large cluster jewel, we're going for add 8 passives and then add 2 jewel slots. And then what we want here is martial momentum, martial prowess, and feed the fury, okay? We need really high accuracy for our precise technique, and these 3 are really going to help with that. It's really, really important that you get them. And then on the slow, I've gone for increased armor. Then what I've done is I've gone for the forbidden flesh and also put that with a forbidden flame. Okay, so we're pairing these 2 up, where we can basically get, of course, it requires duelist, but we're actually going to get an additional ascendant point on here, which is amazing and really, really helps out with the build, especially where we're losing 2 gear slots. We can actually then, get something else in return somewhere else with this. That being, of course, Ascendancy. And then the Watcher's Eye, and this is really, really interesting. Remember, we're using our Impale. Well, Impales you inflict last 2 additional hits while using Pride, which, as you can see in our gems that we've previously spoken about, these are what we are using. And this is absolutely massive for the kind of Impale playstyle that we are going for in this build. And then, sneaky one, Brutal Restraint. This is going to add a lot of dexterity to our nearby nodes in its radius, giving us a massive amount of nearby dexterity and really beefing up the build. As I said, we're trying to stack as much dex. Lastly, Ancestral Vision. Modifiers, plus the dexterity. Modifiers a chance to suppress spell damage. Also apply the chance to avoid elemental ailments at 50% of their value. And that is pretty much it for the kind of things we are going for. If you did miss it, get dexterity on your gear. Now then, let's look at our Ascendancy, our Pantheon, and what we're going to do about Bandits. All those little things that tie up the build. And I always love this. It's my favourite part, which is, of course, Ascendancy. So, first up, I'm going for attack damage, frenzy, and endurance charge duration. And then we're going into Masterful Form. Actually, no, we're not. Sorry, that's for the build I'm filming after this. My God, I'm trying to film too many builds at once. We're actually going into Impact. Sorry, my bad. Attack damage and area of effect. I was reading that, I was thinking, no, that's not right. That is not what we're doing at all. And then we're going into Impact. 50% increased global accuracy rating and adding 0.4 meters to our melee strike range. 5% increased area of effect per enemy killed recently, up to 50%. Huge AoE. Dealing up to 15% more melee damage to enemies based on proximity. After that, we're then going to go to Brutal Fervor and then Endless Hunger. So first we've got attack damage and life leech. Then we're going into Brutal Fervor. 100% increased maximum recovery per life leech. Life leech effects are not removed when unreserved life is filled, and 10% reduced damage when taken while leeching. Attack damage and more life leech, and then Endless Hunger, one of my favourites. 20% of overkill damage is leeched as life. 20% increased attack speed while leeching. You can't be stunned while leeching, and you are unaffected by bleeding while leeching, which is what I explained in the start of the video. And then lastly, we're going to Bane of Legends with attack speed and attack damage. Bane of Legends then, 10% more damage if you've killed recently. God, it always makes me laugh. Cannot take reflected physical damage, and 20% more damage with hits and ailments against unique enemies, which is where the build really all of our leech, etc. We do really need passive points in this build, so kill all of the bandits, no exceptions. Major Pantheon is going to be Linares. We don't need the protection from Brine King from stun, as I've just gone through with our Ascendancy. And then on the minor, I would say Shikari, so that we can just get some poison resistance as well. And then that pretty much is the build. Hopefully you guys liked it. Thumbs up if you didn't. No, thumbs up if you did. Thumbs down if you didn't. But either way, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you do want to watch more builds, click this playlist here. I am doing a hell of a lot of them for PoE, and I also do Diablo 3. I'll be doing Diablo 4 builds. I play all of the ARPGs, okay? And even Last Epoch soon, maybe. If you do want to actually support the channel and all these videos that come out, do click the Patreon link in the description. It really helps support the channel and is very much appreciated. Apart from that, I will see you in Kingsmarch.